Well, hello everyone. It's a huge pleasure and honor to be here. Firstly, I would like to thank, you know, Brian, Yuri, Tommy, Gina. You guys are amazing. You are practically late co-founders of ours in BHub. You were amazing in our journey, and I'm super happy to be sharing this stage with two amazing entrepreneurs, Daniela from Foodology, co-founder and CEO, and also Gaston from Pomelo. There's also a legend in fundraising, and we're going to talk a little further about that as well. But so happy to be here, guys.
Just going to say that I'm very happy to be here too and to learn all about product market fit with you both guys. I find this panel extremely interesting, especially because, as you guys know, we have a B2B business and a B2C business, and product market fit feels very different from those two perspectives. So it's going to be amazing to get to share learnings from, I would say, two different business models.
Absolutely, Gaston. Please present yourself as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Delighted to be here in Brazil and being part of this panel with you guys, good friends. And thank you, Latitude, for having me. They've been supporting Pomelo from the very early days. They were our very first investors, so we have a great relationship. So looking forward to this next 35 minutes.
Likewise. So let's start from the start, right? So the first thing that people don't usually talk about it, but it's for me so important as the product market fit, which is the founder market fit, right? So tell us how your journey, your personal journey, led you to found your company, and how do you connect with your product and the idea?
All right. So, in my case, I've had the pleasure to work in tech my entire life. I was one of the first five people for Google in Spanish-speaking Latin America, a couple of years after the IPO, and that sort of kickstarted my career in tech. And I had a couple of experiences within Google in a very entrepreneurial Google, and then I decided that I would start building my first company. Which I did about 12 years ago. And so I've been in the startup ecosystem and the tech ecosystem basically my entire career. But only started working in fintech about 6 years ago, where I had the opportunity to build a neobank before founding Pomelo. And so essentially, I got to this experience going from more of a specialist within Google doing sales and marketing to more of a generalist, having responsibilities, broader sort of responsibilities in different industries, and having gone through different experiences. We previously sold a company to TripAdvisor, and then I had the opportunity to build this neobank that I mentioned before. And then my two co-founders, we are very, very complementary. One of them, I actually hired him to build the neobank before. Hernan, he's a product person. He was the third person in the history of Mercado Pago. He spent 12 years at Mercado Pago doing product, building the wallet and launching the card throughout all of the regions. So if there's one thing that he knows is about fintech product in Latin America. And then our other co-founder, Juan, he was director of fintech at MasterCard. So, he's a salesperson, and he spent many, many years selling MasterCard into the fintechs. So he sold to Mercado Pago, he sold to Walla, to the Colar, and several others. So we very clearly sort of complement each other. We had all been working together in different capacity. We knew the space. We had experience in Latam. And essentially, we just decided to tackle the biggest frustration that we had from all those previous experiences. So essentially, our thesis was our own frustration. And our experience is what gave birth to the company. And we suffered from it, building a neobank and selling MasterCard and scaling Mercado Pago. And that's what led to us to create this company. I'm very grateful that it's been that way, because when you really feel the pain, then you're more motivated to solve it, and you kind of know what the path may be. And so that's our story.
It's an amazing story, and I do share your thoughts. In my case, man, there was a lot of struggle. This is our third company. Suffered a lot with fundraising, with back office. And actually, our previous company, we sold the company to Rappi, and after we had all the agreements signed, we then, took to the accountants, and then they raised their hand and said, "Hey, you need to pay capital gain taxes." But the problem was there was no capital gain. We were just paying back the liquidation preference. So I had to explain that to my investors. They were pissed. And then eventually we realized that they actually committed a mistake. So that's this very nightmare of experience was precisely the thought that led us to found BHub, me and my co-founders, and to serve other entrepreneurs to, forget about the headaches of handling your back office. So I totally share, the personal pain was what led us to found BHub. What about you, Daniela?
So I think in my case, it was actually my personal love for food that made me start Foodology. I've always absolutely loved everything around food. I actually took a gap year after high school to study cooking in Italy, gained like 20 kilos, came back, exercise now. But I absolutely love food, and I love food because of the way it makes me feel, and because of the way that it makes us socialize and become kind of like in a group setting, more open to sharing. And food really changes your day, You might be having a terrible day and you have a great meal, you have an ice cream, and your day is at least 5% better. So that's kind of like what led me to start Foodology. I had always had this dream of having something in the food business, whether it was a small gelato place, a pizzeria. I honestly didn't know. But at the same time, I had I would say, big career aspiration. So I took a more corporate path, did consulting, did banking, then went to get my MBA. And I always thought the reason why I didn't go into food was because I honestly didn't think it was scalable. Like most people that I knew that had even the most wonderful restaurant had one restaurant, and it seemed to be like a small business that might not have like measured up to like the aspirations I had for myself. But during my MBA, I got this amazing opportunity to take a class on the industry and learned a lot about why there are so many obstacles to actually scaling these types of businesses, but also how many opportunities there are and how little this industry had been disrupted and how little innovation had happened in like 100 years since, I guess, the first fast food chains came up. In this class, I met my co-founder. He was there because he loved investing, and he had invested recently in like a small acai chain in Colombia, actually, and it was going terrible. So he took the class to like learn how he could help. But talking to him, we realized that there was actually a big opportunity in a huge market because we all eat, and most people, I would say, I hope 90% of people really love food. And that kind of like gave us the push to try to build something that was big and measured up to like our career aspirations, but was also something in an industry that I really loved and enjoyed working in.
Awesome. And like you said, it connects to, the words of the great Mark Anderson that says that product market fit is finding a huge market with a huge pain and then solving the needs of this market with your product. So having that in mind, the three of us, we are in big markets. Come on, fintech, food, my case, bookkeeping or back office, but they are very competitive markets. So tell us here, what was your go-to-market strategy in order to, position your companies and to acquire the first, maybe tens customers?
Yeah, so in our case, for those of you who don't know, we do financial services infrastructure throughout Latin America. We do a lot of work around card issuing and processing, and we have a few other products around banking as well. We're in 6 markets around Latam. We work with about 100 companies throughout the region, several unicorns, some banks and embedded finance companies. And in our case, as I mentioned before, we were essentially trying to solve the biggest pain point that we suffered in the past. And one of the things that we realized is that financial services is a very large industry, but it's also very local. And even like the first fintech wave of Latin America is built on top of incumbents that are usually sort of uber local, and they don't really support 21st century sort of case studies or use cases. Sorry. And most importantly, companies, as they grow, they want to be regional companies. And there was this problem that you would have to go market after market, and my co-founder suffered this with Mercado Pago. And they had to go and do the work with every single market with different incumbents, and that would take literally a year and a half just to launch, being one of the most successful companies in the region. And so that insight, amongst a few other things, were what led us to build the company. And so, in many ways, we were our own sort of first customer. We were essentially building what we needed in those previous experiences. We had a very high confidence level that that would naturally sort of organically lead to the first couple of customers. And it was actually very interesting because the first customer that we had came from one of the networks. It was referred by one of them, and they were in the process of choosing who to work with for card processing. And they essentially had like two options: the one that everyone had used before, which was to go with one of the local incumbents that they knew was going to be a process of about a year and a half, or just trust a new company called Pomelo that had absolutely 0 lines of code. And they decided the latter. We shook hands and we had absolutely nothing. But the interesting part was that other founder thought that we would be able to deliver that first version of the product in less than the time that it would take them to work with the incumbent. And so we did. And so that's how the first couple of customers came. And then, of course, things progress. And it's not about finding product market fit once. You have to find product market fit every single day. And it's sort of an ongoing process, and it's a constant iteration. And we can talk more about that. But that's our story.
Great. So, in other words, the incumbents suck. You've just promised, man, we're going to actually deliver it and deliver in time that we promised. And then you act on that. It's a good means. I can understand it. What about you, Daniela?
So I guess for me, kind of when I think about product market fit, I like to start with a hypothesis, right? And for us, the hypothesis was, in LATAM, it's very hard to scale a new innovative concept. And it's very hard to continue iterating and innovating, like in the food segment, around a concept. And when I came back from my MBA, I was in Colombia, and I realized that 2 years later, after leaving, there was still the same offering in the market. None of like the cool, trendy things that were happening in the US, the like salad boom, the like Californian breakfast style boom, nothing like that was actually happening in Colombia. So for us, the first hypothesis was like, if we could be able to bring continuously the trendiest food, innovating and like scaling it and making it available for as many consumers as fast as possible, could we actually build strong brands that people would come to love? And there were a ton of hypotheses behind that, because people would ask us, do you think people will actually order from a place they've never seen a brick and mortar store from? How on earth are you always going to figure out what's the next trendiest thing? And obviously, when you get started, you don't have to answer all of these questions at once. But we definitely said, us as customers coming from Boston, what are we missing here? And we realized there was like at least 4 different concepts, dining concepts, from salads to like the Chipotle of the world to the Californian breakfast that I was mentioning, that there was no one in the market actually doing it. So that's how we got started. We set up one small kitchen with these 4 brands. These 4 brands, we've iterated on them a lot to actually now some of them are pretty big brands that people love. But we just wanted to like make food that we loved, and that like got rid of that itch that we had from the things that we missed from our time in Boston.
Awesome. Love what you said, because you get, the power of branding, the power of positioning. In our case with BHub, we came up with the idea with this terrible experience. And then, come on, we were not willing to start just yet. So we came up with this idea of performing this growth hack campaign. We were still in the midst of the pandemic. So we invited other entrepreneurs to have a digital coffee to talk about all of the struggles of administering the finance of first startup. And we actually performed 314 interviews. And it got clear to us that, not only bookkeeping, but the whole back office was a nightmare of experience, was terrible. And then we saw all of these companies. There was Conta Key, Conta Ali, all of these bookkeepings-like names, very boring stuff. And then we thought, no, man, we need to be completely different. We actually came up with a very terrible name, but eventually we realized that it wasn't good enough. And then we came up with BHub and the little rocket. And it was like, we could see that was an interesting brand, and it was inviting people to learn more. So that's the power of branding or positioning. And the interviews was a hack that really helped us to acquire, let's say, the first 30 or so. And the product, to be honest, was still far away from being good, but people actually bought on the vision. They actually were willing to help us develop the product. So it was a key moment for us. Having said that, now let's move a little bit further. So you acquired the first customers, you are now evolving. Maybe you already got some funding. Then what is the next step? What was your strategy to actually, getting to product market fit? What was the key metric that you thought this is my North Star metric? There is going to, show that we achieved product market fit, which is the biggest first mission for all of us.
Yeah, I think there are definitely metrics, but at the end of the day, I think it's something that you simply feel, right? You know that you have it, or you know that you don't have it yet, or you know that it's sort of getting there. And yes, there's metrics. I think it depends on the type of the business. I think NPS is a good metric. I think many times like the quality of the logos that you are able to close is a very good proxy. Maybe you don't have like very significant revenues yet, but you've closed like a couple of very relevant logos. It happened to us like in one market, we sort of landed, the product was sort of okay, but it had, to improve a lot. And all of a sudden we started signing a lot of tech unicorns. I was like, wow, okay, there's something here. I mean, the size of the pain is so big that even like these companies that are, much more established and more significant in size and in volume that first customer that I told you about before, are willing to work with us. And so that's something that you kind of see and realize that there's something there. And then I think it's an endless sort of evolution, right? And as I said before, I mean, you might as well find product market fit or something along those lines, but then 6 months later, the definition, has probably changed or has probably evolved a little bit, or even you evolved as a company. So for instance, in our case, as we've been, progressing in the different markets and sort of in the execution of our vision, we've started to change a little bit the profile of the customers that we sell into. And so then you need to find like a new sort of product market fit or a new version of the product market fit for that other customer segment. And also product market fit for us as a regional company, there's no such thing as like a regional product market fit. It's almost like the sum of every single market independently, because every market has different nuances. In financial services, different regulation, the maturity of the ecosystems is very different. Obviously, like Brazil is way more advanced than many of the other countries sort of on the other side of the continent. And so I think, a product market fit has to be sort of these, broken down. And you probably need like multiple smaller product market fits within your company. And by breaking that down, you also realize what's not working. And so you de-invest or you shut that down, and then you put more resources into whatever is working. So, I like the broader concept, but I think it's also important to break it down and go very much into the details, because maybe within, this big definition of product market fit, you actually have things that work, things that don't work. And that's what gives you a lot of sort of, just like, food for thought and opportunities to continue to improve moving forward.
Great. What about you, Daniela?
So I think what might be a little bit different in a like B2C company is that sales is definitely how you feel product market fit. As they say, customers vote with their dollars. And at the end of the day, it's a little easier to like kind of touch product market fit when you're dealing directly with a person, because this person chose you from a lot of other options. This person told their friend about it. This person posted on their Instagram a picture of the meal they received. And those like little, I would say, gestures of, hey, I really liked your product, kind of like give you that feeling at the end that you achieved product market fit. And in Foodology, I guess, to your question on like what happens next, we ultimately had to figure out how do we become a like product market fit machine. Because to your point also, you have to continuously be looking for new product market fit. And in our case, where we're trying to always bring the latest, the trendiest new concepts, it's how do you like tweak that machine so that every time you hit it faster, every time you bring something even better. And I can tell you, after 4 years, we've definitely learned a ton. And there's things that help us to get there, but it's not like a step by step that always guarantees success. We still launch things that don't get product market fit. We also learn from them. And the fact that we have gotten like a semi-formula, call it, to like do it faster and iterate faster to realize if we're getting there or not, does not mean that we are not trying constantly like newer things as well. Because I think you can never stop actually like looking for a new product market fit and looking for new ways to serve your customer. So I don't know, just to give you an example, we started off by like fully creating our own brands. And then as of lately, we've tried a lot of like influencer co-brand creation. For example, we created a brand with Noru, who is one of the biggest streamers in Latin America. We actually have his burger stand out there, and he's going to be here if you guys are into gaming and streaming. And that's something new. That's something we had never tried, to figure out if like actually the client is actually looking for something beyond the burger and actually looking to connect with the community.
Love what you said, because it does also always evolve, right? From the start, we had a lot of demand for our service, but to be honest, it was a huge scope of work. So for us, the initial metric was not only that we acquired customers, we were growing a lot, but at the same time, it was important that we were able to deliver this product in a sustainable way, especially because in the midst, we were born in July 2021, and then early 2022, the winter of startups started, right? So a lot of our customers started to suffer. The willingness to pay became trickier. Some of these guys went out of market. So it was much tougher for us, and it was painful. Our customers were suffering. And we tried our best to help them. You can pay later. We tried everything we could. But at the same time, we were also looking at the broader scene. And we had to do some sort of pivot, because we eventually realized that the incumbents, they were in a tricky spot. Why is that? Because the underlying infrastructure for accountants, which is, a necessary servicer for all business owners in Brazil, they are not tech-driven companies. So they are not able to conciliate all the bank accounts, all the ERPs, payment acquires. So they are not capable of doing that and, complying with all the bureaucracy, all of the regulation demands. So they started asking to use our services. And then the fourth time that we received such a request, said, okay, let's try it. And we eventually realized that we acquired these customers with a lower customer acquisition cost. The, main metrics, the margin, it's more standardized. That they were not expecting that much. So it was actually something that we learned. Maybe this type of business is way better than the first one. So now we are, almost 50-50. We have the direct channels, but we also realize that, man, these things is amazing. We could be building the financial operating system for, over 160 billion market. And we are very much focused to that now.
I piggyback on that, and I want to make the two comments. One is, actually, when you realize that you can charge more and not less for your product, that's also a very good sign of product market fit. Like usually in this industry, we always tend to think that everything has to be cheaper and cheaper over time. And it's true sometimes, or for some categories. But to the extent that you can start charging more and your customer is willing to pay more, that's probably a very good sign of a strong product and product market fit altogether. And the other comment that I wanted to make is that the founder market fit is also very important, that it remains there over time. Because there's also a big risk for all of us as founders that we too become the incumbents, right? Or you are too much kind of into the rabbit hole, and then you lose your ability to remain objective. So I like sort of doing the exercise of, every once in a while, going back to my investors or go to some, gatherings with other entrepreneurs, and is okay. Just hit me in the face as much as you possibly can, because I need to, shake up a little bit, and I need to be able to zoom out, because that's where my learning is. And then I need to be able to come back to the company with all these concepts and learnings and new ways of thinking, so that we all challenge each other and you are challenging yourself as a founder.
This is an amazing advice. Amazing advice. And yeah, we all had our past experience. And some of these conversations or some of the feedback that the market brings to you eventually leads to a pivot, right? Because in the end of the day, we're looking to build huge companies and create a significant impact. Have you ever had this experience? What was, if you had, what was, we need to pivot, and what was, the strategy to pursue that in order to achieve a new product market fit?
So I think we pivot in like smaller ways, in the sense that we continuously pivot on concepts and our brands. But I guess one of the things that we recently like did a big change in our business model was of trying to acquire product market fit. So we don't believe that we're like the sole creators of everything good food. There's a lot of talented entrepreneurs, creative people, chefs that are doing amazing things in this industry. And I would say at some point we were very like stuck on, we have to create all of our brands. And then we would see competitors coming up, and not at the same scale as us, because they were like the more traditional version of a restaurant entrepreneur. And we would say, whoa, they have an amazing product, let's copy it. And little by little, we were like, no, we shouldn't be copying them. We should actually be working with them. And maybe acquiring them, maybe being a franchisee of them, like so many different ways in which you can achieve that. And I kind of at the end said, well, it's kind of like when a big pharma company buys the R&D after the second trial of the smaller pharma company. And like, why aren't we doing that? And to your point, it's like, you need to like get out of your head, think about what else is going around in the world and how else you could achieve your same like mission, which for me is to change my customers' life one dish at a time and bring them the best food. And sometimes that does not mean that I have to create it internally. So I think like that's one time that we pivoted, and it was kind of like the market and the competition itself that made us realize that.
Awesome. And the advice of, doing the zoom out, talking to other people, talk to the market is key. Did you have this type of experience as well?
I went through pivoting experience in the past. I wouldn't say so in Pomelo, but I do think, and we did several iterations in many different areas of the company. And I do believe in the compounding power of those smaller sort of iterations. So we've changed our pricing strategy. We've changed the way in which we prioritize the markets and the roadmap. We've changed the market segments and customer types that we go after. We've changed internally as an organization. So, for instance, engineering at first was reporting to my product co-founder, and we actually swapped engineering and operations. So now engineering reports to me, also because it was related to some of the career goals and areas of opportunity that the CTO had. And operations is now reporting into my product co-founder, because we started to realize that there were a lot of opportunities and synergies between ops and product. And also he had arguably like more experience than myself, and so he could bring a fresh new look. And so I was absolutely thrilled and delighted to pass on that part of the company to him, because in turn, I can focus more in some other things. So yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of these things both internally and externally, and we will continue to do so. And I think it'd be a big mistake not to do it. So again, I do believe in the compounding power of these sort of micro iterations.
Love what you said, because, we always think about pivot as these big deviations from the initial strategy, the initial product or idea. But I think it more like you said, it's a constant iteration. It's similar to curling, right? We're, trying to take all of the frictions, all of the, what is impeding us to grow further, to improve the product, to improve the engagement with customers. So love what you said. Now let's go to this very interesting part. These two guys here, they are, amazing fundraisers. They have raised amazing funding rounds. And I would like to ask you if you think about product market fit in the terms of investor market fit. Is there some similarities in the storytelling or the strategy? What do you think about it? And what was your experience, in fundraising?
That's a great question. So I do think there's investor market fit in the sense that you should try your absolute best to partner with people that are gonna add value to your company and that like what you're doing from the beginning and are not like set on changing the way you work, etc. That being said, also to like the startup winter, beggars can't be choosers, right? So you also have to learn a lot and pivot and learn to work with different people and different set of investors. I do think, however, that you need for sure someone that believes in like the long-term like vision of the company and is kind of like there to like see it all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like a very important topic. I think the sort of the dynamics that the industry has doesn't favor being able to gather lots of data points, before you and the investor makes those decisions. So I think the way we've been thinking about this is like we've been trying to gather those data points proactively by traveling and getting to know more people way in advance and investing more time into that, because I think that will inform a lot of our and their future decisions. I also think this is also an iterative process, same as with the team or same as with your co-founders, and pretty much with anything else. I mean, some relationships are kind of forever, and then some others don't last that long. And I do think that some investors are, super relevant for some stages of the business, and then you just simply have to move on to a different sort of set of investors. And that's also kind of a constant learning process. And but yeah, it's definitely very important. And I find that in Latam, it's very important that we work with investors that understand the region very well. So they have been invested in the region for many years, or they are from the region, of course. Or if that's not the case, that they know your thesis and the type of company that you're building very, very, very well, and they have worked in similar setups around the world. So I always try to optimize for that sort of dual kind of skill set or background, where Latam is always present and very, very present. And then the type of business that we're building is always present. And I find amazing how investors also try to educate each other, right? So the Latam investors try to educate the global investors in terms of some of the nuances and how things work down here. And then the global investors teach your Latam investors about, how that business should be run or what the core metrics are. And I've always sort of tried to optimize for that balance. And so you're there sitting sort of in between, and it's very rich to be able to see both sides and to get that sort of motion going where you extract the best from both, so to speak.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one thing that you said, Daniela, is amazing. I do think that, come on, it's a marriage. So you need to have this alignment of vision, of principles, of, you're going to spend a lot of time in difficult time with your investors. And in our case, another thing which is good advice is that we had this dream, for instance, one of the investors that we have is Monachis. I know Marcelo it took 8 years until they invest. And Brian, the other day, remember a big lesson that he told me, which is when you ask for money, you get advice. When you get advice, maybe you can get some money. And I think what's interesting is two things which work for me. The first is that you need to build relationship in order to get to know the person, so that the person creates this bond, this trust with you. So I think this is very good. And also to to improve the message. As you talk and as you create this bond, you are seeing what it takes, what is the key part of the message. And on top of that, I think you need to see if your value proposition, it makes sense for the investors, because maybe they have amazing experience with our investors. One of ours, Redosofia, they have invested in the companies that we most admire. So it was always a dream for us. But if they were the ones that we were willing to get, they were not the first that we spoke to. We were starting to work on the speech with the other investors that we were actually not that inclined to, but it were very important for us to improve the message. And then eventually we succeeded, thanks God, but it was a key learning for us. So guys, I see that the time is finishing. So the last question for you guys. What is the advice that you would give to other founders so as to achieve product market fit and to thrive in this challenging environment that we are now finding ourselves at?
So I think to achieve product market fit, my ultimate best advice and to most founders is find something that you're really passionate about doing. Because that joke like, oh, I was tired of like working 9 to 5, so I decided to become an entrepreneur and now I work 24/7. That's literally what's going to happen. And you need to make sure that you're working at something that you love 24/7, because finding product market fit is mostly being very resilient and being able to pivot, to iterate, to try many different things. So it's hopefully something that you're very, very passionate about. And then to your question on like, I guess the environment right now, I would say it's also about resilience, right? So it's about not giving up. Maybe you're going to have, instead of 30 conversations, 100 conversations. But always kind of like, or my thinking to get around it this past few like years that we've been doing extension rounds was, okay, if like I couldn't get funding and I had to close down the company for any reason, would I do it again? And the answer is absolutely, because I think the market's amazing, the idea is amazing. So yeah, maybe it's not the right time for funding, but like I would start all over again. So that kind of always keeps me going out. Like I'll have one more conversation. I'll give it one more try.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree. I think this is a time to have more and not less conversations, and to keep communication super clean, straightforward, transparent, honest, both internally and externally. I was given an advice that stuck to my mind. That is that you have to constantly be sort of renegotiating those relationships, because the rules of engagement with which you started the company with your co-founders or started a business relationship with a customer, they do change over time. But if you don't have the conversation, then you are assuming lots of things, and you are assuming that things are good, or you are assuming that things have to go one direction or the other direction. And I think it's very important to actually explicitly say, okay, let's sit down and let's sort of renegotiate this relationship, right? What's important to you now? What's important to me now? Is there a match again? Can we find, kind of a refreshed sort of path forward? And I think in these times and in this environment, that will go a long way.
Great. So for me, the CTO of Pismo, she just said, be some sort of paranoid. Know your metrics. Know what is happening, with your business. Second, keep very focused at what is your value prop. What are the most important things for you to focus at. And lastly, something that you said, keep your mind open to see if there are other possibilities you are not sensing, and be resilient for sure. So thanks, guys. It was a huge pleasure. Thank you so much. We really appreciate having this chat with you guys, and hope you enjoyed as well. Thank you.
You guys.